Okay, so I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Issaquah Human Services Commission on Wednesday, March 16th, 2022. And we are starting at 6:33 p.m. Welcome, everyone. And I believe that we have a quorum this evening. And Hannah, do you want me to facilitate a roll call, or are you okay with visuals of attendees?
I have attendees, so I'm okay on my end.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, sorry,
Okay.
Monica.
I just wanted to let you know that Trish is trying to join by phone. I apologize. And so she's going to be here in just any minute. She has some technical issues.
Wonderful. And I see Jaime as well joining us. So that's great. We'll have everyone.
Welcome.
Welcome, Jaime. And while Trish is joining, I would like to ask Hannah if we have any members of the public who are attending tonight, or any public comments that we would like to hear.
Thank you, Susan. At this time, we do not have any public in attendance, and we did not receive any public comments.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our prior meeting on February 9th, 2022. If I could ask if folks have not had a chance to look through that, if you could take a couple of minutes now, scan through that, and signal if you have any suggestions, comments, just by raising your hand. And Hannah, I'd like to go ahead and kick that off. In the very end of the minutes, we talk about Human Services Commissioner transition, item C. There are just a couple of misspellings of last names. Hansen, Hansen, and Leonelli with 2 L's at the end, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. I've noted those changes and updates.
Thank you. Am I seeing any other comments, Claire?
Just a grammar thing. There's, in that same paragraph, the city is capitalized. Not sure if you want city capitalized there, or if you meant to put the whole name in, but it's not capitalized in other places. So, and it's sad thinking Anna's not here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Claire. I've noted that as well.
Okay, so I would like to seek approval of the minutes as presented with the changes that we just discussed. And I'm seeking approval by unanimous consent. And if folks could signal, excuse me, Claire, one more item.
I'm so sorry. There's one more oddity in here. In agenda item B, Human Services Grant Draft Supplemental. There's an odd thing in the middle of the paragraph. The supplemental is part of the Share One Act 16 city application. I think, it looks like a bunch of words have been merged together. It might just be the software that uploads it to the city's page. But as you're looking at that, that might need a little attention.
So specifically the string Share One app all looks smushed together. Is that what you're?
It does. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just raised that up as a thought.
Thanks for bringing that up, Claire. So the Share One app, which I don't expect you to be familiar with that, that is the title of the online portal where nonprofit organizations send in their applications.
Okay.
So it definitely looks funny on this, but that is the spelling.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate you taking a look at that.
Any other thoughts? Okay, if I could get an indication, please, if you would like to approve the minutes as presented and amended as we discussed. Okay. Thank you. The minutes are approved. Thank you very much. Hannah, I believe the next item on the agenda is staff report, and the first item under staff report are updates from the mayor and city council presented by Monica. Monica, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan, and good evening, commissioners. I think I also wanted to know that I think Trish was able to join us by phone. You will not see her on the screen because she called in, so she does not have a video. So just wanted to let you know that.
Welcome, Trish. Thank you.
Yeah, and then Trish, you may unmute yourself if you would like to chime in, so please don't hesitate to do that. Or Hannah can assist. Please let us know if you have a hard time with that. And with that, I'm gonna move forward with a couple of updates from Mayor and City Council. For those of you who were not able to chime in into last week's council meeting or the council meeting on March 7th, I'm proud to say and grateful to say that City Council adopted our Human Services Strategic Plan. I want to give a big shout out and tremendous thanks to Susan, who was also in attendance at the council meeting and made some wonderful comments on behalf of the commission. So thank you for that. Thank you also, commissioners. I know that we brought this agenda item in front of you quite a few times during work. So now we are moving into implementation. It's adopted by City Council, and we are going to start working on implementing all of those goals and action items that we included in the strategic plan. So you will hear more about the strategic plan, but definitely very excited for the adoption by City Council.
Monica, may I just make one build comment off that?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I just wanted to thank Monica and Hannah and team for just an incredible effort, and it was well recognized by City Council, by the mayor, and all I did was just kind of add the voice of what it was like as a commission to work with Hannah and Monica through this process, and to learn along with them, and to contribute our voices to help shape the final product. And I also made a comment that it's going to be super useful for this commission to really help guide what comes next in terms of wrapping our mind around the grant funding process and how to consider what's being asked of us, and how we kind of align toward really what the city would like us to do. And having been through this process a couple times, again, I think this is going to make a big difference and keep us well-oriented and well-organized in the deliberation processes that is coming up. And I know that's going to be a topic later today. So, and that seemed to resonate, the utility of the strategic plan for that particular role, among many other things, seemed to really resonate with City Council as well. So again, just wanted to add my congratulations and thanks to the commissioners, and then of course to Monica and Hannah and all the staff who put that together. So it was just an incredible deliverable and very well received. So congratulations.
Thank you very much, commissioners and Susan. Definitely, yeah, we are so humbled and grateful to continue working with you. And yes, as I mentioned, you will hear about the Human Services Strategic Plan as early as in the upcoming months, as we are gonna dive into the application process and priorities and whatnot. So yeah. So with that, on the same evening on March 7th at the council regular meeting, City Council also authorized a couple of modifications to the Issaquah rental assistance program. If you may remember, we updated you on this back in October. City Council authorized $500,000 in rental assistance to provide a bridge for, as you remember, at the end of October, the moratorium ended, and the rental assistance allocation was really to help those in need and provide that bridge between the end of the moratorium and allowing time for people to go back to work and regroup. So a couple of modifications were made at the council meeting on March 7th, one of them being lifting the 3-month limit that was initially imposed We learned during this time that some, not too many, but some tenants have more than a 3-month owe more than 3 months back in rent. And so by lifting that 3-month limit, the money would be able to provide much needed assistance for those who have more months in rental arrearages, and so that would help. The second modification to the program was redistribution of the initial allocation. Initially, the $500,000 were all allocated to HopeLink. In the last few months, we learned on one end that HopeLink had some staffing challenges, as many nonprofits and many organizations have. And so in order to help with giving out the money a little bit faster, we redistributed $150,000 of that initial allocation to go directly to Imagine Housing, which is one of our low-income housing providers in Issaquah, actually the largest low-income housing provider on the east side. And instead of asking all the residents from those 4 apartment complexes in Issaquah to apply to HopeLink and slow down the process more, we will just give that entire amount of money to the agency, which then will cover all the back rent for all of the residents in those apartment complexes. Small changes to that rental assistance program. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to respond, but other than that, this concludes our update on City Council and Mayor updates. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Monica. And then I will go ahead and continue us on our Human Services and Commission update. So the main one here, as we are shifting gear to focus on the 2023 and 2024 Human Services grant application, the Eastside Human Services Commission is having a joint equity training, and this is going to be offered during the month of April. So we are looking at 2 trainings. They will be virtual. The first one's going to be April 7th at 6:30 p.m. This one is going to be kind of lay the foundation, and it's going to be an overview, a background, and just kind of a level setting. This will be recorded. So if you're not able to attend this initial meeting, we will be sending out the link. And then in addition to this main equity training, there's going to be an opportunity for commissioners to join small group equity training. Just so they're looking to have 10 to 12 commissioners to really have a more in-depth training, discussion, dialogue around this topic. And so those will be offered on the 19th, April 19th, April 28th, and then there will be one in May, which will be great for any new commissioners who are joining us. And really the concept and the idea of this is as we are about to look at applications, we are hoping that this equity training really allows us to put on the equity lens in preparation for this lofty task of looking at these applications. So just would like to invite you all to those. I'll be sending out more information and more details in an email with times, and we'll discuss more if of those options. Would love to get a few things on the calendar with that. And let's see, that concludes the Human Services and Commission updates on my end. Thank you. And I'll pass it back to Susan.
Okay, thank you very much. So I believe that moves us to agenda item number 5, which is Human Services Grants Review Process. Again, presented by Monica and Hannah.
Thank you again, Susan. Commissioners, with your permission, I would love to start by a presentation followed by a discussion with all of you as we prepare for the funding reviews this season. Allow me just a moment. And go. Okay, we are all set. Thank you. So what we were hoping to cover with you tonight, commissioners, is really to provide you with information on how we handled the 2020-2021 grant review process. And with that, then have a conversation on what were some of the lessons learned, what are some of the things that really worked, and what are some of the modifications that we want to make as we head into the grant review season here in the upcoming months. So with that, some of the things here are recap for you, as I know that you have heard us now talk quite a few times over the last several months about the grant process. Just as a brief reminder, all of our grant reviews are on a biannual cycle. So we review, when we review applications, we review them for the upcoming 2 years. Like for now in 2022, we review the applications, and when you as commissioners will make funding recommendations, you will make the funding recommendations for 2023 and 2024. Again, as a brief reminder, we just opened 2 days ago on Monday, the grant cycle opened, and it will stay open until the end of April. April 28th is when the grant applications are due from community organizations. We held at a regional level 2 workshops, one yesterday and one today, informing organizations and providing information on what each city of the 16 cities, what each city's requirements are and how to handle the application and whatnot. We are also available to provide individual technical assistance. So if you do know organizations in the area who might be interested in applying or seeking funding from our city or from any other cities in the region, please don't hesitate to have them contact us. We would be more than happy to go over any details or questions that they might have. So as in April, we are going to receive, at the end of April, we are going to receive the applications. Between May and August is when you commissioners are going to be hard at work. We are going to work with you together in reviewing those applications and making recommendations to the mayor and city council. So as the last cycle at the end of August is when we completed the recommendations. We then handed them over to the mayor, who then further included them in her budget proposal to city council. So the budget proposal typically is made by the mayor in September to city council. So the grant recommendations are included in that. And then city council further goes through the budget season and deliberations with an anticipated budget adoption at the end of November. And so that then will give us time on our end internally. Between November, December, January, we are working hard at developing contracts with those agencies who receive funding. So just a little bit of information about that process. I can also stop for questions throughout, or if you allow me to just speak for another 5-10 more minutes, hopefully not more than 10, I can just finish this overview and then we can discuss as a group. But don't hesitate to stop me if I just keep on talking at you a lot. Next, wanted to just give you a snapshot and an overview of how we handled things last cycle. So as we receive the applications at the end of April, all of you will have access to reviewing the applications, and we provided quite a few different ways. We can give you logins for you to go into the Share One app system and see the applications as they were submitted. That's one option. We also have the option of saving all the applications as PDFs for you. We put them last season in a SharePoint site where you can just go and see them all in alphabetical order. And on a limited basis, we don't want to offer this for everyone just for the sake of paper, but if needed on a limited basis, we also can print them out. We are trying to move away from this habit just because, printing thousands of pages for 10-12 commissioners, that's a lot of paper. However, on our end as a staff, we will also work on providing you a snapshot of those applications. We will provide a list with all the summaries and how much funding they requested and if they received funding in the past. So we will give you kind of like a summary of that. We will also organize the applications by goal areas. In this season, what this is going to be new, we are going to group the applications by the goal and priority areas in the Human Services Strategic Plan. So again, we are going to start implementing that. So we are going to provide you all of that information. Our goal is that for our meeting in May, you're going to already have all of these tools available. And so next, then we would start the review process. Last season, what we did, and we found it pretty helpful, but again, we are going to discuss in a few minutes. We created 3 review groups, or if you wish, subcommittees. 2 or 3 members were assigned to each of those groups. And so then we divided the applications, as we divided them in goal areas, then we assigned to each subgroup a number of applications to review. Instead of everybody reviewing all applications, as a reminder, last time we had, I think, 89 or close to 90 applications. Each of the subgroups then just reviewed about 30 applications. That seemed a little bit more reasonable. Of course, if you have the time, capacity, and interest, you're more than welcome and you can review all 90 applications or how many we will review. But at minimum, by being part of a subcommittee, you will have just a smaller number. We also had review cards last time and criteria associated with those review cards. You have in your packet the review cards that we used last cycle in 2020, but you also have the scorecards that were used in 2018. The review cards, which don't have scores associated with, was a modification that we did last cycle. And the reasoning behind was that we learned from commissioners that although they assigned scores initially, in the end, when they made recommendations, they really did not use the scores. And so if they were not useful, then we just simplified those scorecards and we created these review cards, which you're going to see in your packet. We have them here on the screen too in a moment. Provided just a green, yellow, and red kind of like coloring code along with some criteria. Green meaning, okay, you recommend them. Yellow meaning you may want to discuss some more, and red meaning that you may not recommend them. So it was just a simplified way. And then, so in addition to those subcommittees, the subcommittees met individually depending on their time and availability and made their own recommendations. And then we came back as a larger group for commission deliberations, where we just summarized everything, and each of the subgroups had a chance to present their recommendations and reasoning behind. So it made the process a little bit easier. And then by August, we made the recommendations to City Council. So for that, just here at the bottom, just a brief timeline. Again, April and May equity trainings, as you heard Hannah, we are going to talk a little bit more about that. In May, we will be onboarding new commissioners. So on our end, that's why we've worked really hard at the regional level to provide the equity trainings in May as well. So then the new commissioners have access to them. Hopefully in June, we would anticipate the small group reviews to begin. In July, we had commission deliberations in the past as well. And in August, we made recommendations. The prioritization criteria this year would be new compared to last year. This time around, as I mentioned, we are going to use the Human Services Strategic Plan. So these are going to be the big buckets, if you wish. As an example, I was just talking about, this was the review tool that was used last time. As you see, funding the green light and what we were considering under that. And when we needed to have further discussion, perhaps and the application, really there was a match, but maybe the application was incomplete, or maybe there were some concerns about residents having access to a program or whatnot. And then in the red category, we were putting like either it wasn't a city priority, perhaps, or a need, perhaps it was a duplicate program. There were other programs who better serve the residents in that capacity, or there were no response or incomplete applications. So just examples there. And then with that, I think that's all in my presentation. I think we would love just to kind of like have a discussion on what were the lessons learned and what modifications you would propose based on what you know for us to implement for the upcoming cycle. So with that, Susan and commissioners and Hannah, any questions, comments, wherever you would like to start with discussions?
Yeah, I see Pat made a comment that she has a question, and then I saw Manny's hand.
Thanks, Monica. This sounds like a long process, but it's well thought. I have a few questions. I'm going to ask maybe two, and then I'll let Manny ask his questions and others as well. The first question is, so for each of the subgroups, when they make a recommendation, besides the scoring in red, yellow, and green, do they recommend are they recommending a certain amount of grants to be funded? And the other question is more or less related. If, let's say, we can only fund 10 grants and a group has 10 green, what do we do? So when everyone comes together, all groups come together, do they reclassify the greens, or how do that go? How does that go? Thank you.
Such great questions. Thank you so much, Pat. Such great questions. And I look forward, I see Susan would love to hear her thoughts as she's been through this. But yes, absolutely. So the subcommittees will make recommendations for amounts as well. What we did last time is we divided the applications in the 3 subgroups. We also provided information on how much for those subgroups, for the different funding categories, how much funding was provided in the last cycle, and an estimated total amount that the subgroup would have to allocate. So let's say if we had $500,000 based on previous allocations, then we allocate a certain amount to each of the subgroups. So then you had that amount. So you did come to the large committee, to the large commission meeting with initial agency recommendations and tentative amounts. Now to the second question, the difficult conversation that we are going to have in the upcoming 2 months are going to be one, and that's where I would love to hear Susan a lot. The challenge is we have this amount and we always are going to have more applications and more requests than money. One option is to reduce the number of grants and give larger amounts to everyone. And then in this case, you just don't, we need to decide you're just not going to recommend funding for a certain number. The other option that historically the commission has used was to try to give a little bit to as many organizations as possible. The third option that is always an option, and I know that City Council actually is interested in continuing the conversation on grant funding allocation, is for you to make recommendations as a commission based on this is how much money we have, and based on the money, this is how much we can recommend. However, we believe that these organizations should also be funded and you can request additional funds. On our end, again, as staff, I know that at the City Council level, there is an interest in discussing the funding process. So we are actually scheduled to go in April to City Council for an initial conversation on this. But yeah, that's just another, we'll bring this back. But I hope I answered your question. Questions, yeah, thank you.
And Monica, I'd be happy to share a few thoughts, but I want to make sure Manny shares his question.
Thank you, Susan. This is Commissioner Manny Brown. I just wanted the definition of a snapshot in the summary. So are we talking about Cliff Notes type of thing, or are we talking about just taking the full application and putting it out there so we can read it. What's your definition of a snapshot summary?
Thank you. And maybe for a visual, we would be happy to also email you. I can also bring up and share my screen to what we provided in the past. Many great question. What we did was a table format, but it was several pages long because, again, we had 90 applications where we had basically one column with the name of the organization and the name of the program. You're going to see that sometimes one organization is going to request funding for multiple programs. So then we had that. And then we also, for each of them, we had a brief summary from their application, like a summary of what their proposal is all about. And then we had different columns with that know that if they were a first-time applicant or if they received funding in the past, and if they received funding in the past, how much funding they received. So kind of like that's this. It's a table format for kind of like a snapshot. It's all a kind of like a brief summary of all the applications in one document, rather than just having 90 documents open.
Okay, and example of a classification would be, for example, helping people with mental health problems, right?
Right.
Or
yes.
or housing or food.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes. That's why last time we had, for example, housing was one category, roof overhead and basic needs. So then we had anything that had to do with housing, homelessness, and food was in one category. And then we had medical and behavioral health care into one other category. And then we had kind of like another category with language, culture, domestic violence, and all of that in another category. So yeah, absolutely, just like you said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Manny. And Susan, I know you wanted to speak. I see here though Lucrecia chimed in and has a question and comment. If we don't mind,
Oh,
giving the
please.
floor to her first, that'd be great.
Thank you, Susan and Hannah. I guess I'm wondering if in part of the information that the commissioners will receive to make a decision as to who you all will be deciding to fund, if part of that information also includes the past success of these agencies with money that has been given in the past. Like, are they held to some sort of, reporting, like, I hope that makes sense. And then Monica, in your presentation, you stated that if there are organizations that are not funded through the human services, that the human services can make a recommendation for them to be funded elsewhere. And I wanted to hear more about, like, where does that money come from? Or did I misunderstand what you said? And then I guess I want to better understand the deeper funding versus broader funding a little bit better. And I think that that's what Susan's going to do. That was my third bullet point that I had questions about. And yeah, and I guess is today that day when we're having the discussion as to when, if it will be deep or broad? And if not, when will that discussion actually take place?
Such great questions, Lucrecia. Thank you so much. So going back to your first question, and actually that is something that we would want to discuss tonight. In the past, this is prior to me joining the city, including performance on an organization was not included in the commission's review. That is something that if you give us direction tonight, we would be happy during the review process to provide you information on organizations' performance. There are pluses and minuses about this. On one end, if there are new organizations that apply, we do not have information on them regarding their performance. So as long as we all agree to use the information somehow along every, kind of like across the board in a fair way, absolutely that is something that we can do. So that is one modification that we can provide. To your second question, I might have misspoke or did not explain myself correctly when I mentioned about other organizations. I believe what I was trying to say that if, let's say, we receive many applications and you as a commission, you decide that all of these applications are great and you would like to fund more than we have money for, a third option would be to request additional funds, to make a request to City Council, or at least to make a recommendation to say we would also want to fund these organizations, but we don't have more money, and then kind of like make a request from City Council to consider that. I don't know if that helps, if I'm better at explaining this time. And then the third question was regarding the deep versus peanut butter spread, as we like to call it. Initial conversations we can start tonight. I think if you give us, these are again directions tonight, like, hey, we would like to talk some more about this. This is something that definitely I think we need to address in the upcoming months. So while we can start, I don't anticipate that we should go into a lot of detail tonight, just because we don't have more information other than just we want to gather from you thoughts on what would be helpful for you to have as commissioners. Thank you. Go for it.
Just real quick, Monica, with regards to what having information that some agencies, that we may not have some information on some agencies that could be new to us. Is there a way in the application to capture that level of information, like saying, you know, if you have not been funded through us in the past, can you give references as to who has funded you in the past and allow us or tell us what successes you've had with funding from other places, just to show, you know, responsibility for the funding that they're receiving of us.
Mm-hmm. We can certainly get in touch with them afterwards. In the current application, as it opened across the 16 cities, that is not currently in as a possibility. But as we receive the applications, we can then see which of the organizations are new, who applied for funding from Issaquah, and then we can get in touch with them and find a way to request some information. So yeah, those are great suggestions. Definitely, we can look into that. Yeah. Thank you. As we are waiting for others to join, or not to join, I apologize, I'm tired. I wanted to hear if, I don't know if Trish had any comments or questions also, since knowing that she's on the phone. Trish, can you hear us and see us? Do you have?
I just unmuted you on my end.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I am just listening. I don't have questions at this point. Yeah, but this is really good to go over. This will be my first time, as you guys know.
That's great. Thanks, Trish. Okay, Hannah, Susan.
Thank you. Is it okay, Monica, if I just share a few of my, so Hannah and Monica and I were talking a little bit in preparation for this meeting, and it, aside from Monica, I think I am the only one who's sort of been through the last couple cycles. So I did have a few observations to share, because I remember when I went into this myself for the first time, it was a bit disorienting and confusing, and I wasn't sure what my job was. And so I thought I would just maybe share some personal observations and some lessons that I learned over time that might be helpful to you. I think one of the first things that was helpful is understanding the jobs to be done. So I think what's really going to be useful for us is this Human Services Strategic Plan, because we know where the city's priorities are, and we know where they want to provide human services to our citizens according to kind of those, again, job areas or jobs to be done. And I think about when we're looking at all the people who can, or all the organizations that can help deliver those services, it's almost like we are interviewing them for a job that they are going to do to deliver those services to our citizens who need them. So in other words, sometimes it can get a little bit confusing about, are we giving grant money to worthy organizations because we feel moved by their mission and we feel like they're, good people trying to do good things. Sometimes your heartstrings tug a little bit. It's like, oh, I want to give these people more because I really want to help them move forward their cause. But you also have to look at that. Are they well positioned to actually do the job that we're hiring them to do, which is to deliver the services to our citizens in need? And sometimes that causes a little bit of angst in that trade-off. And we have had that long-standing discussion about spreading versus concentrating. I think the pros of concentrating are that you can come close to what the organization is asking for. So the organization basically says, city, you want us to do this job, we can do it effectively, it's going to cost this. And you want to sort of respect that, and you want to give them that funding because yes, you want them to do that job for you, but then that takes up a pretty big chunk of what you have to spend. And so you end up making this bargaining in your head. It's like, well, if I only gave you maybe 80% of what you're asking for or 50% of what you're asking for, how far can you get? And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. It kind of depends on the program, it depends on the organization. And one of the other interesting factors is that you will often see the same organization having applications in different categories. So some of these larger organizations might have multiple programs that cross different categories. And there was a point in time where we did take that lens. Were we giving to the same organization over and over? And how did that feel? Or was that another sort of opportunity for us to spread it around a little bit instead of sort of concentrating it in a single organization? The sort of the irony is that the bigger, more organized organizations that have like lots of data, lots of results, lots of, they tend to get a lot of the money, and that can be a good thing, but then that can also potentially shut out some of the smaller, more grassroots, more, newer organizations who just need a chance to get in there and deliver their services effectively. So I don't really have an answer for you on that, but it is a continual point of tension that you're going to have to definitely pay attention to. We also looked at the concept of duplication. So when going back to that jobs to be done. So when you're thinking about delivering mental health services, delivering services to the homeless, et cetera, we tried as hard as we could to compare apples to apples, especially if we were in a situation where we could not fund everybody. We wanted to pick the opportunities that were going to be most effective, again, in serving the needs of our citizens. So we tried to minimize duplication. So if there was an organization who delivered, I'm just picking out thin air, mental health services to the youth of Issaquah, and then there was another organization who was delivering mental health services to the youth of Issaquah, but through the school system. And there was another one and there were these little subtleties that are like, oh, but are those equal? Do they have the same reach? Are they reaching the same type of need? And now we also have our equity lens that we're looking through. So you kind of say, okay, do you have a program that is delivering mental health services to the youth of Issaquah, but they are BIPOC students? And then you have another one, the youth of Issaquah, who happen to be, a different group. And so like, how do you compare those? And so I think the duplication challenge is going to be an issue. And I don't really know what to say other than we try to do as much as we can to kind of like find situations where there truly is duplication to and use that in our selection criteria. The other thing is I find that when we get to city council and we are ready to make the recommendations through the mayor and to city council, we often get questions about why we're not funding somebody as opposed to why we are funding somebody. It's kind of like everybody realizes that through staff, through the application process and through our deliberations, we'll find good people to do good work and do these jobs for us. I don't think people are that concerned that we will get, we'll go astray and fund an organization that's just not going to do anything, or the money's going to be wasted. It's mostly about, okay, but why didn't you fund that organization? This is a good organization. Why didn't you fund that organization? And again, it's difficult, but I will say what was really helpful was when we were going through those deliberations in the small groups that Monica mentioned, it's really helpful to take good notes. And so that you can go back and kind of remember, like, oh, we were really struggling. Here's, the things that we saw in favor. Here are the things that we saw against. And here's why we netted out, with our recommendation, whatever it is. And then you have those notes to remind yourself to kind of put together usually it's like a 1-sentence narrative, well, the reason why we were not able to fund this organization is because of this. And that's just going to be really helpful for the process, because it's sometimes really hard to go back and remember, why you thought a certain thing. And then I guess my last suggestion, Monica, was I think the red, yellow, green structure that you set up last year was really helpful. It's kind of simplified. It's just a lot easier to kind of like put, organizations in that type of category. I might suggest that we spend a little bit of time as a commission on the reasons that you have listed under each. I think there was just a bit of confusion about, well, wait a minute, what's a yellow and what constitutes a red and what constitutes a green. So if the commission felt like they wanted to do that now or later, when it got closer to the time, I think almost agreeing on, what are the either, major categories of reasons, under each, or the criteria that would typically put somebody in a red, yellow, green. I think that would be just helpful as a small improvement to the process. Thank you. And any questions or any other discussion around anything I said, or, I'd appreciate any feedback. Thank you.
Hey, Susan, I just want to say, yes, Lucrecia had her hand up, but I also want to say that Pat had a question. So Lucrecia, are you okay if I go ahead and hand it over to Pat first and then pass it back to you? Thank you. All right, Pat.
Thanks, Susan. Actually, 2 questions. The first one is, do we know, and it might have come up and I'm just not remembering, for each dollar we give to an organization, do we know how much is going to be spent on the matter we're looking into? And is it always, in a way, when an organization wants to work with the city of Issaquah, do we tell them you cannot have more than X% going to your overhead, or X amount has to go to implementation?
Such another great question, Pat. The way we contract with the organizations is we contract for service units that they provide. So for the service that they provide and for outcomes. So while typically though for overhead, we don't allow more than 10%, in our contract, we contract for a number of residents that they are going to serve and for a number of hours of services that they provide. So then we have a range of dollars, but we don't go under or over depending on kind of like what service they provide, right? So let's say I'm going to take as an example a shelter. We have 3, 4, 5 shelters in the area that submit applications to us, and then they each have a certain amount of dollars per bed night that they charge, right? Let's say it's going to be $80 per bed night. So then depending on how much funding we have, we calculate how many bed nights they provide. And so that's going to be the contract. So we don't look at the overhead. It's like the cost for service that we are looking at. But let's say if we provide for one shelter, let's say if we pay $80 per hour and the other shelter wants to charge us $400, then we would have a conversations with both to understand what's the difference. And there's a certain amount that we wouldn't go over. Does that help a little bit? Yeah,
it does. And the reason I asked about that is because thank you, Susan, exactly what you were saying. Although we have the buckets of green, yellow, and orange and yellow, it will be very important that we identify the criteria that go under each of those. And I know we're moving away from the point system, but I mean, we can talk about this when times gets here. When the criteria are clear, right? Then it would be good to decide, okay, you have many of the greens, but if you have many of the yellows and the oranges as well, do we really want to fund you, right? Compared to another organization. And then that's where the point system can come in. But then the point only comes in when we have clear criteria under each of the buckets. And thank you.
May I clarify just one comment? And Monica, maybe you can help me, but Pat, I think the red, yellow, green tool that we were using was really a gestalt summary of an entire organization and an entire application. We weren't, at least in my group, we weren't taking one application and saying, on this point you're green, on that point you're yellow, on that point you're red. That's sort of the way that we were kind of doing it the cycle before. I think this past year we really kind of did it almost like in a simplified, okay, I read through everything. I know what I'm looking for. Are they a red? Are they a yellow? Are they a green? And it was very simple, but it seemed to be effective.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to point out that
Yeah. Thank you, Susan. And I would love to add to that a little bit. I think what I learned and heard from the commissioners with the point system based on like going to each application individually by section and either assign points or colors, it's actually the very equity issue. Because what we learned that sometimes then you have large organizations who have excellent grant writers and they're going to present a perfect application that's going to score very high, but then you're going to have a small organization who has 100% volunteers, and speaking of overhead, all the money goes directly into services, no overhead, absolutely, but their application is not going to score that high because they just don't have that capacity. And especially if you look at BIPOC communities who might not have the fancy ways of providing the organs. So that's the challenge that we were running into with scores and very specific criteria. Yeah, thank you.
This is Jaime. I'm glad we're talking about that because I don't want to go into, this is my first time on this side of really zoning in of nonprofit agencies or agencies in their budget. That's not, I think, what we signed up to look at people's spreadsheets. I think I like what you said about looking at the goals and does that match our strategic plan? But also too, talking about the unintended consequences. We might see applications that are really well written in the sense of, and it just got brought up about capacity. You might have agencies that have, grant writers, whereas some of those agencies don't have grant writers or the staffing to provide statements. And I think that's what you talked about, Monica. Then you have like the inequities within BIPOC communities or nonprofit of, so I'm glad we're having the conversation, but it does have to be kind of looked at how much is being into direct service versus admin. I think that's something to, be aware. But yeah, I do appreciate, and then I know I'm going off the worksheet here. It sounds like the scorecards, and then and talk about timelines, right? April, May equity trainings, May onboarding. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. And so, yeah, I know, Lucrecia, you had question and comment, and then at the end, I would love to also offer a couple of thoughts that I had in response to Susan's great comment and challenge with duplications and some other things I just wanted to share with you as thoughts. Go for it, Lucrecia.
I don't know if you heard me. I said I passed. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not hear you. Okay. So in that case, I think one of the ideas that we were entertaining here with Hannah and I think Susan a month or so ago is because of COVID and your hard work on creating the equity board, we did not have time to do what typically the commission does on off years, and that is to visit with the nonprofit agencies to get to know them a little bit. So one way in which, if you're interested in commissioners, in which we could perhaps address some of the duplication issues, or if you would like to get to know organizations, per categories, we could invite organizations to come and introduce themselves for a few minutes as you review the applications, let's say from the mental health section. Even at the subcommittee level, we can invite them to come and introduce themselves to you. It's going to be, I think, perhaps it's going to mean adding a few extra meetings or extending some of the meetings, but that is one option that we can consider as we get and dive, especially if you're going to feel that it's really difficult to discuss, and if you want to add an equity layer to that. But those are options to keep in mind for the future months.
This is Manny. I'm glad you said that, Monica, because I was looking at when you're talking about communication. Is this a fluid thing? So doing this whole process, are we going back and forth to these grantors, or is it one time in and done as far as communicating?
We have the ability to communicate with them if we want. It's just we want to find a fair way that's fair to everyone. But we do have, and let's say if there's something on their application is not clear, we can, we contact them and ask them to explain something. So we have that ability to communicate. What typically we don't allow them is to submit a new application or submit an application late. But if something's not clear and we need clarification, absolutely that's possible. And often it happens that during the review process, by nature, organizations know that we have a public comment section, and often you're going to see that they would want to sign up to come and introduce themselves by default, just for them to have a chance to tell you who they are and what they do. So that communication is it's an option.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to ask if anybody else, Trish or Sarah or Claire, anybody else has additional comments or questions? Monica, I think everybody's prepped and contemplating and excited to get their arms around what it is. Oh, looks like.
Sounds good. I think Hannah was trying to say something, but I think
sorry.
we couldn't hear you, Hannah.
Nope.
No, we cannot hear you. And I think, meanwhile, Lucrecia, I think you had also.
Yeah.
Sure. I was wondering if, since I think 3 of us are stepping down next month, correct? So I'm wondering if the people that are being brought on will have access to our recorded session today, so that they can kind of have some sort of basis to start working from, because they're going to need to hit the ground running. It's just a thought that I had.
Yes, thank you, Lucrecia. And that's exactly the challenge that we were also kind of like talking about, because we are ready to dive deeper in these conversations with you, but we are also very aware that we are going to have a new commissioner. So definitely they will have access to the recorded session, and we will also meet with them individually to bring them up to speed a little bit. And that's also the reasoning why, even with the equity trainings, we wanted to extend them as much as we can so they have access to those. But yeah, we share the same concerns for sure.
Thank you, Lucrecia. And then I'm going to go ahead and unmute Trish, as I believe she has a comment. Trish, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
We sure can.
Okay, great. Yeah, and maybe I should already know this, and I know that the Human Services Department was stretched these past couple of years, and had to bring on new staff, and et cetera. But is there some kind of scorecard that you all have created so that applicants that we have funded in the past, that we can anticipate, we'll be asking, will also come in as potential grantees during this next cycle. Do you have some kind of scorecard that you can share with the commission about how well past grantees have done?
So Trish, I'm gonna try to answer, and I think I might have a clarifying question. So scorecards for applications, yes, we do. We also have and conduct reports on that we actually, even some of them we share with City Council on how the performance of the applicants. We also from time to time we share that with the commission, or I think the commission, we share that in the summer, I think a performance review. So those we do have available, and we can certainly share them with the commission.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Maybe I was
Yes.
using, when I said scorecard, I meant performance review.
Yes, we do have those, and again, we can share those. Similar with the previous conversation, though, is just what we want to is to make sure that if we have performance reviews on all existing organizations, then we have something also for new organizations.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
And I wanted to, Susan, your comments were really helpful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's sort of like you don't really know what it's like until you just get started, but once you get started, you'll get the hang of it.
So great conversations, commissioners, tonight. Thank you so much, Susan, and thank you to all of you commissioners for input and suggestions. I think we are going to take in some of your suggestions. We are going to start preparing so we can share that information with you, and be ready in May. We are going to focus in April and May on trainings, and in May we are going to hit the ground running for sure. But I think it's going to be an exciting season. We'll try to make it as pain-free as possible for you. And thank you for all you do. It's a commitment for sure. Okay.
Thank you, Monica. So that wraps up your section.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Well, awesome. We're actually doing great on time. So the next item on our agenda is other business or announcements. Do any of the commissioners have anything that they would like to add or bring up as new business? Okay, I don't see any. So Hannah, anything else you would like to add?
Yes, thank you, Susan. So there are just a couple of things that I'd like to spend some time in the remainder of our time, and hopefully we can wrap up early. But I want to go back to the Equity Joint Commission meeting, the Eastside Joint Commission meeting that's happening in April. Would like to suggest and get everyone's opinion and approval with gearing up for the application process and knowing just how intense it might be. We would like to propose that in April, in lieu of our regular Human Services Commission meeting, that we continue, we have our joint equity commission meeting that is scheduled for April. So again, the dates that we had were April 7th was the overview one, and then there are 2 other meetings in April and 1 in May that we are hoping commissioners can join for those. So we wanted to have that discussion here during this time to see if we would be okay having that meeting instead of our regular commission meeting. And I see Monica has her hand up, so I'll let her chime in here.
Yeah, I just have a clarifying question for the commissioners, Hannah, right? So the meeting on April 7th, that is a joint one initial training session, right? It's an overview basics training on equity and funding. So ideally, it would be great for as many people to attend. But the nice thing about that is that that session is going to be recorded if you're not going to be able to attend. Hannah would need information on attendance, though, as soon as in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to let Hannah put a deadline to that because depending on how many of you are able to attend, we will notice that meeting as a special Human Services Commission meeting. So that's number 1, right? Am I correct so far, Hannah?
Yes.
Of that. And then the other 3 sessions, 2 in April and 1 in May, those are going to be small group follow-up discussions, facilitated training discussions to dive deeper into the equity issues around funding. So for those, you would not have to attend all those 3 sessions. You would have to pick one of those 3 sessions. Correct, Hannah?
That's correct, Monica. Thanks for clarifying.
And then for that, you would also want to sign up from commissioners, right? On who's going to be able to make which session.
Yes, I would need to know who's going where so we can send you the correct panelist link for those events.
And for that, shamelessly, I'm going to note that perhaps that is one session, if possible, to leave and allow as many as the new commissioners to join for the one in May. We will probably know who are going to be the new commissioners by the end of April, but chances for them to attend that and also watch the recording of the one in early April.
So Monica and Hannah, so for the 3 that were asked to choose one of the 3, there's no reason for like all of us to try to pick the same event to attend together as a commission, because we'll still be mixed with other cities. Is that right? It's just
Yes.
pick anyone and it doesn't matter. Okay,
Yes, exactly.
thank you.
And I think my understanding from the other cities is that the attempt is going to be to have those 3 groups as even as possible. So encouraging people to choose from 3 different, right, sessions instead of everyone signing up for one.
Yeah. Thanks, Monica. Yes. So to just summarize again, there is the April 7th meeting that I will need to know if you will be attending or not to see if we are meeting quorum, to see if we need to post that as a special meeting. So that's number 1, I'll need to know. And then number 2 is which of the 3 joint meetings will you be attending on April 19th, April 28th, or May 11th? And we would definitely encourage one of the April dates. So what I will do next then is I'm going to send out an email. And then I hope to hear from everybody by next Friday, if not sooner. So if you can look at your calendars and respond as soon as possible. So that way we can just prepare for with the other cities as well and coordinate that. So I would greatly appreciate that. And then again, we would like to suggest that we use our April for these meetings instead of having our Human Services regular meeting, which currently is scheduled for April, let's say 16th. My calendar is pulling up. Sorry, April 20th is our current schedule for the next meeting. We are suggesting canceling that one and having the equity training. So thumbs up, down, questions? See a couple thumbs up. Any questions or concerns?
So Hannah, may I just remark then that this meeting that we're on now will be the last official Human Services Commission meeting that we'll attend together for some of us who are going to be departing. Is that correct?
That's what that would mean, which then I would like to spend the last few minutes then, if we are all in agreement, to have this be our, or to cancel the regular meeting in April. I'd like to just kind of spend the last few minutes that we have together. We have plenty of time just to wish a few of our commissioners who will be ending their term. So sounds like we're okay. We're okay with our plan for April then, Monica? Oh, sorry. I thought you were raising your hand.
No, I was trying to see because I don't know if we heard from everyone. I think Pat maybe has a question, or yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
And the April 7 meeting is at the same time, right?
It's either 6 or 6:30. I'm not sure exactly the time, but it's similar. Yes, 6:30 might be the time. Yes.
Sorry, were you asking for the April time?
7th, yeah, April 7th, 6:30
to 8. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's on page 9 of the packet. Yeah, 6:30 to 7:30. It looks like the Thursday the 7th meeting. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Looks like we have everybody in agreement. So with that said, we want to take this time to just say thank you to a few of our commissioners. Susan, Leonelli, thank you so much for, yes, your time as the chair, your leadership, your compassion. It's just, we are so sad to see you move on, but we are just so thrilled to have had you for the many years on this commission. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you. It's bittersweet. I wish you all well. I know you guys will. I'm very excited about the passion and the leadership that I see on this call, and I know we'll be getting another couple of new commissioners joining the crew, and with Monica and Hannah's leadership, I think you guys will go on to do awesome things and continue to deliver all the great insight and expertise that the city needs from its citizens, and it was just a pleasure to work with all of you. So thank you. I may show up as an attendee one of these days just to share my support.
We welcome it, Susan. Thank you so much. I would also like to acknowledge a few other commissioners who will be stepping down, and love to open the floor up for everyone to share their gratitude or comments or anything. So Lucrecia, we want to say thank you again for your many years and participation in the Human Service Commission. We are thrilled to see you serving in the Equity Board, so we appreciate your continuous service to the city, and we will miss you on here on the Human Services Commission side of things, but I'm sure we'll see you on the other side of equity, and our paths will cross again. So I just want to say thank you again so much for just being here. It's been lovely to work with you. So thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah. And then I'd also like to acknowledge Claire. We will be missing Claire here. Claire will be moving on as well. Claire, thank you so much for your service here. I have thoroughly enjoyed working with you and hearing your input. I value everything that you've shared in the meetings that I've been able to attend and work with you on the last year. So you will be very missed. I really do appreciate your time. So thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much, Hannah, and thanks to everyone here. It's been a really good experience. Just feeling more called to be more present to my family here, and I really appreciate the time I've been on the commission, and really just looking back to this evening, talking about these things, thinking how much has happened in the last 2 years in this commission, and I just really recognize all of you, and especially Monica and Hannah, and all the work that you've done. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire. All right, well, those are the 3 goodbyes. So I want to definitely give some space and room for many others to share and speak.
I just wanted to thank Claire and Lucrecia and all of you, but it's because of the 2 of you now leaving, along with myself. I think your impact on what this commission is, and the tasks that we are going to be carrying out as a commission are just incredible. And I just, I think back to the influence that you've had, the guidance that you've provided, and I just want to let you know that your contributions will live on. It's really going to be so helpful in keeping this commission moving forward in the right direction. And I know you won't be going far. You'll be obviously continuing to be part of the city, and I think that you should just be very proud of your contributions. And I just want to thank you personally for all of your dedication. Thank you. And I know, Monica, you want to, yeah, please, anybody.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I just want to thank especially Monica, Lucrecia, and Manny. I think we've had some really special experiences And I just feel lucky to have been part of that. And it has deeply affected me. And I'm really appreciative for being pulled into that and being given a seat there. So I just want to thank you, especially.
Thank you. And that's exactly what I was gonna call out a little bit. I was gonna mention that, Claire, believe it if or not, it's been less than 2 years because as new commissioners, you started at mid-year in September. So many things have happened since you joined, and you made such a big difference. I have fond memories from our color-coded preparation for council meeting. If you recall, as we were preparing for the council presentation on proposing to council the creation of the equity board. And so I can't believe that in less than 2 years, we had so many great community conversations. Just so much happened while responding to COVID. It's almost like a blur. And you've been part of this, and we made it happen. And we have a successful equity board that I'm so proud of. They've been in action for 4 months. They're still learning to work with one another, and they already proposed and went through 2 proposals to city council. And so they are go-getters, and they make it happen, and I'm just so proud of them and humbled to work with them, and I just look forward to see where they go. So thank you for that. You made a huge impact, really long-lasting impact in this community. And Susan, I remember you've been on this commission before I started with the city, and I've been now with the city for about 3.5 years. I have beautiful memories from the times when we were meeting in person. Virtual meetings were not defined. We had no idea what those were. We were in the room downstairs that I can't even remember the name of it now, which now is no longer a meeting room. It's actually it's the city's permitting center, believe it or not.
Right.
Downstairs at the main city hall. Then we moved to City Hall Northwest in the Pickering room. I remember the times when we had packets. So the agenda packet that's now online, commissioners, used to be printed out for every commissioners. You would have your 20-page, 30-page packet with agenda. Just, I can't believe so many beautiful memories with all of you, and so much change in less than 2 years, really. So thank you for all your time, long evenings, extra meetings. I don't want to scare commissioners with extra meetings because those happen during the funding process. So thank you. So honored to have a chance to work with all of you.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Manny Brown. First of all, Susan, thank you so much for your leadership. It's been amazing, and your tenure that you've brought so much experience to this group. I just can't even comprehend being here without you being there. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And my my other 2 quads, Claire and Lucrecia, we've gone through a lot, and you guys really helped make this someplace I want it to be. So thank you so much.
I will echo everything that's been said so far, but just to say, I really truly miss you. You've been very inspiring, and I wish we could go out for, just to see each other. I've not seen any one of you in person. It would be good to maybe one of these days, have a coffee or, but thank you. Thanks for inspiring and all your hard work and being so thoughtful. Thank you.
And I'd also like to add that Sarah and Jaime, you step up now.
I'm getting a little nervous now. I didn't realize that folks were kind of moving on, so that's part of the journey. I think it's always, I often say, you pass the baton for improvement. So I appreciate you all as I kind of get to do this more and more, I'm going to realize some of the hard work you all put in, and realize like, wow, they all did it. So I appreciate it. You know, I hope to continue passing the baton for a better world, a better place, and especially for the people that we serve. So it's something I don't take lightly. So I appreciate y'all putting stewards of tax $1 million back to historically marginalized populations. It's a very important role, and I will do my best. So I want to say thank you all for sharing space tonight. So thank you.
Yes, and I think I saw Claire once at the grocery store when I was leaving, and that's about as close as I got. I was like gonna start shouting anyway. It was a while ago. But if I ever see you again, I'll shout you down because you guys have been just so welcoming over virtually. I mean, so I can't even imagine what those years ago that you were mentioning, Monica. But thank you for being so welcoming and getting us up to speed and making it look easy. So I guess keep us in your thoughts as we move forward, and looking forward to staying in touch and seeing what else is in store for you guys as Issaquah just continues to grow. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I wanted to say one last thing. You know, I just want to say, Susan, I've only been in this commission for 2 years, but I just have to say what an awesome job you've done leading us this year.
Thank you.
Derek was not easy to follow. You know, he was.
Could you tell how terrified I was for about half the year? She
No.
has incredible shoes to fill, but
Yeah, and
Monica
I just
and
think
support.
you're just so prepared at every meeting, and I find it really centering in our conversations because I know that you've got a really thorough grasp of the issue, and you've guided us in this really intentional way, and I really appreciate that. So I just want to say what a pleasure it's been this year to be here with you as our leader. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and unmute here, Trish. Trish wants to say a few words. Trish, you should be on mute now.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm bringing up the caboose, but, I really +1, +1, +1, +1 to everything everybody has said. And Susan, your leadership has just been outstanding. And yes, I would have been nervous too if I had to follow Derek, but I couldn't tell at all that you were nervous. I thought you just were as smooth as could be, and you were just a great bridge from him as the chair to you, and and we've really accomplished a lot while you guys have been here. And in fact, I'm thinking now, is there any way we can twist these guys' arms to reconsider their decisions? But everybody needs to do what they got to do. So thank you all very much.
Thank you all. And I think that's the challenge and the bittersweet. I think, Susan, you put it so well. Definitely, gosh, your leadership and your excellence and organization. And then at the same time, we are selfish and we would love to have you. And we do need to, though, acknowledge that these are volunteer positions. And all of you, I know, have professional and personal lives that require so much more of you, and it's only fair, to allow you to do that. Definitely, we would hope that we would have you back as an attendee, like you said, Susan, or maybe, yes, would be so wonderful to go out and have a small celebration in person as the weather gets better. I know that you all got together last fall, and why not have that again, right?
That's a great idea. And always making room for new voices. I mean, that is one of the nicer consequences of turnover, is you get new folks with new points of view, and I think that keeps us learning from each other. And so I know we've got some great interviews already set up, and I'm sure we'll be very pleased with the additional folks who'd like to play a role in these important discussions and decisions. So the nice thing is we all just get to meet each other along the way, and then we end up building a big alumni community.
Yes. And what a wonderful way to have you. Thank you again, Susan, even for that, to have you part of the interview process of the incoming commissioners. As you know, you can lead your experience in the recruitment process. So I think that's we are so grateful for that. And with that, my last comment from you commissioners, I hope it's not going to feel shocking, but I think just prepare yourself emotionally that I think at the next meeting in May, as we come together, you will have 3 new faces to meet and greet. You're also going to have the task of voting for your new chair and new vice chair for next year. So quite a few tasks to accomplish right away, as we are also going to hit you with, this is how many applications we have to review, and let's get started. So just giving you that warm, just be ready for what's coming in May. So with that, start thinking of how would you, if you're interested in maybe stepping up as in the chair position, or if you're thinking of recommending someone for the chair and vice chair position. I know we have Pat. She did an amazing job in the vice chair position. We would love to continue hearing from her and her preference and all of you. So a lot coming up, but exciting, and yeah. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all. And Hannah, anything else that you had?
I think that concludes the our other business and announcements. So I'll give it to you, Susan.
Okay, so exactly on time, we will go ahead and adjourn the March 16th, 2022 meeting of the Issaquah Human Services Commission at 7:59 p.m. Thank you all.
Thank you
1
so
minute
much.
early.
1 minute early.
Woo.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good
Have a
evening,
great evening.
Bye. Take care.
Take good care.
Oh, have a good night. Oh, I'm so sad.
Are you guys stuck? Do you want me to just end the meeting? I'll end the meeting. How about? Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye.
Poor Sarah. Oh, you know what? Hold on.